All things considered, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put up a pretty game fight last year in defense of their world championship. While, yes, they ultimately didn't win the title, like, you look at how the season transpired and went down, it wasn't all that bad. Now, granted, they had to deal with the Antonio Brown drama, especially in the Jets game where he takes off his shirt and he walks off and he looks like a complete idiot. I don't care what the history is or the background there is. You just don't do that. Like, you don't do that. You can't do that. Like, that's horrendous. But you even have, with that, everything else that happens when you talk about the pressures on you because you're the defending champs. This is still a team that won double-digit games, went to the divisional round of the playoffs. They beat the Eagles in the wild card round relatively easily. And even in that divisional round game in Los Angeles against the Rams, I mean, they were down big early, if you remember. Like, it was a 20-plus point deficit in that second half. And they came back and showed the heart of champions and made a game of it to the point where the Rams had to hit a big bomb late to get into field goal position to win the damn thing. I mean, it looked like it was going to be really ugly and like, this is the Brady Swan song for sure. Like, yeah, you need to go. But they almost went to the NFC Championship game, but ultimately they didn't, losing to the Rams there. And then you look at this offseason, it certainly had some interest in it. Tom Brady retired until a little bit later when he didn't. How does that work? That's that Ross Perot. I quit. I'm back. I quit. I'm back. I quit. I'm back. I quit. I'm back. You know, I guess it's one of those things. He thought about retirement. It sounds really good. Then he realized, oh my God, that means I got to be around the wife and effing kids all the time. No, let me play one more year. I'm not quite ready for this, and I understand that, sir. Rob Gronkowski also retired, at least for now. Maybe he's taking half the year off and trying to save his body a little bit and said, hey, let me see how this team's doing. Maybe I'll come back and play again. But if not, he had a hell of a career, and we'll see him in Canton in the Pro Football Hall of Fame someday. Another big piece of news there, as much as you focus on the players with Brady and Gronkowski, it's Bruce Arians stepping aside and allowing Todd Bowles to take over as the team's new head coach. Like, that's a sizable change there in terms of leadership. Going from Bruce Arians to Todd Bowles, that's a big difference there. Good on Bruce Arians for winning his championship, trying to defend it and saying, you know what, no, I'm good. Like, let me let one of my coordinators get an opportunity that clearly they're not going to get elsewhere in the league. So good on Bruce Arians for that. And good on Todd Bowles for being able to rebound a few years ago from being fired by the Jets to being in a position now where he gets a second chance as an NFL head coach. That's really cool. In terms of notable things this offseason, you had the retirement of Ali Marpet. You had Alex Kappa leave via free agency. Jordan Whitehead left via free agency. But the Buccaneers did all right. You know, it looked like trying to plug in some holes here. Trying to make up some ways for Antonio Brown's departure. They signed Russell Gage away from the Atlanta Falcons. They signed Julio Jones. So you look at that wide receiving core now. You've got Mike Evans. You've got Chris Godwin coming back from the injury. And then you've got Gage and Julio Jones there. Now you look at Julio and you say you're looking at him more as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, which feels probably like the more appropriate spot for him to be at this stage of his career. They brought in Akeem Hicks on that defense as well. You look at the Buccaneers, in a lot of ways, they feel like they're poised to make another run at it here in 2022, which is what you got to do. You go all in while you can. Some concerns that I have about this team, though, like let me start off with what I really like about them. Their pass rush. This is still a team that can generate a lot of heat on opposing quarterbacks, which is a very important thing to do in the modern NFL. Make those quarterbacks uncomfortable. Give them less time. You know, make them have to move around. Quarterbacks don't always like to do that. Their run defense is also really good, and I expect it to continue, especially with Todd Bowles still being involved there. And then you look at the receiving core. Like I just mentioned, you talk about the Mike Evans, Chris Godwin coming back from the ACL injury, Russell Gage, Julio Jones. Like, this should be a team that can create plenty of mismatches on opposing defenses that will be able to move the ball plenty through the air. But my concerns include, like, where's the running game going to come from? This is not a team that runs the ball a ton or particularly well. Like, you probably want to have a little bit more balance there offensively. Take some of the pressure off of Brady, take some of the heat off the defense, give them some rest. The pass defense has been soft, and I think it's going to potentially be again here in 2022, and losing Whitehead certainly doesn't help. And then there's Tom Brady at 45. Isn't that what he's going to be now, 45? I mean, where you're pretty close to uncharted territory here. You're going to say, well, somebody like George Blanda. George Blanda, nobody else is playing at this high of a level at this age like Tom Brady is. And you wonder at some point in time, Father Time is always undefeated. You stick around this long, are you tempting fate too much? And you just got to wonder. Like, this is a guy, he retired, and then he's coming back, and then he left the team for a little bit for whatever reason that might be. You wonder with Brady, like, is this the season you see a real bit of downturn here? Or is he just a frickin' machine and it doesn't matter and this is going to be his last season and it's still going to be a really damn good one? You feel almost foolish to bet against Brady at this point. Looking at this team and their schedule this year, a couple of notable matchups that stand out to me, especially when you think about potential playoff positioning. Week 1, they open on Sunday night at Dallas. You remember that game, Week 1 last year, was really good. It was a hell of a game, one of the best games of the year, I thought. And Dak Prescott had come back from the elbow injury. He wasn't 100%, but the Dallas Cowboys almost beat the Bucs. So if the Cowboys can beat the Bucs in Week 1, it gives them a bit of a leg up in the playoff picture and puts Tampa in a bad spot. Week 3, the Buccaneers get to host Green Bay. There's another big spot between two teams that figure to be contenders in the NFC. You want to be able to handle business, especially at home. Same thing with Week 9 when you're taking on the Rams. You know, you're fortunate enough again to be able to get them at home. You know, you've had a change in coaching staff. You lost Gronkowski. There's no Antonio Brown. Had a couple of losses there on the offensive line. But Todd Bowles is a familiar face and a steady hand there. And you still have freaking Tom Brady. You have weapons all over the place on offense. I find it really, really hard for me at this point to go against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So whether or not they're going to be able to get into position to contend for a championship, like the divisional round might be their ceiling. I don't know if they have it to be able to get to that next level. They might. But I just look at the other teams in that division and I say, I can't envision a scenario where the Falcons are better than the Buccaneers this year. I can't envision a scenario where the Saints are better than the Buccaneers this year. And I can't envision a scenario where the Panthers are better than the Buccaneers this year. I mean, if you guys can, you could let me know in the comments, like, where you think that's going to come from. I could, like I said, I could be totally wrong, as it could be with any of these predictions, any of these selections, any of these picks. But I just look at this team right now and say, this is a team that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Last year, almost got to the NFC Championship game. You know, while I'm not as confident in them this year, relative to their competition in the division at least, I think they've still got to be the premium team in this division.